Hello everyone, it's me, Ian, the part-time Dungeon Master. Welcome back to D20 Sundays. How's it going? Anyways, today's episode is on the Tavern. Well, more of its evolution in the Dungeons & Dragons world, and what it means to you as the player or the Dungeon Master. Now, evolution is probably the wrong term. You see, back in the olden days of Dungeons & Dragons, many Dungeon Masters used it as a starting point. It's like, alright, you all got your characters rolled up, you start out in a tavern. And the reason was, it was just an easy place to have everyone start out. Not to mention, taverns were a mainstay of many small towns. You see, most D&D games take place in a medieval fantasy kind of world, where, there's commoners, common folk, adventurers, and so on. And the nobility very rarely went out to drink and eat with the commoners, so where would you get the best jobs if you were not able to mingle with the nobles? Well, the tavern. The reason being is there was a lot of gossip, people who were willing to pay just a small amount of coin that they had in order to get a job done. And over the time, we evolved the whole idea of a tavern to where it's like, oh, you can also sleep there, so, it's an inn and tavern, so that way if you really need a place to stay. And then we also started posting up job postings and bounty boards. It's like, oh, if you're truly an adventurer sort, they've got some jobs for you just over on the board that you can look at. And, yeah. So, another thing, though, a main thing about, taverns in Dungeons & Dragons, is on page 170 of your player's handbook. It's the Tavern Brawler feat. You see, the Tavern Brawler, accustomed to rough and tumble fighting using whatever weapons happen to be at hand, you gain the following benefits. You increase your strength or constitution score by 1 to a maximum of 20. You are proficient with improvised weapons. Your unarmed strike uses a d4 for damage. And whenever you hit a creature with an unarmed strike or an improvised weapon on your turn, you can use a bonus action to attempt to grapple. That's pretty good, actually. And the fact that tavern brawls happen, well, that just adds a little bit more flavor to that building that we use. As I said, though, it was originally a trope. It was something that, most dungeon masters used. And now, though, it's kind of a joke. I don't really know of any dungeon master that use that as an opening. I think they kind of used it as an opening in the Season 2 of Critical Role, in the second campaign. It's been a long while since I watched, though. But the fact is that it's such a rarity these days that, a lot of people just don't use it. They instead use, like, oh, there's a festival going on that's being interrupted by a goblin attack or something. Or they're like, oh, all of you are actually guards on this caravan that's passing through this town, and so on and so forth. The actual tavern itself is still a mainstay of Dungeons & Dragons, but it's no longer that starting trope. At least not far as I've seen. Not in a long time. I've had campaigns in, like, medieval fantasy to futuristic high sci-fi to even low down, like, oh, this is actually the beginning of civilization kind of D&D. We played as cavemen. That was actually kind of fun. But the idea of starting out in a tavern was just kind of like, meh, But at the same time, it makes perfect sense to have the tavern still be a crucial part of a town. I mean, a lot of villagers and common folk back in the olden days, when they were tired of working or they were done with their work for the day, they'd likely go to the tavern and have a drink and talk with their friends, because that was just normal. That was the social norm for back then. And thanks to taverns, we had supplies of food and water for everyone. We had jobs that could be posted up, and so on. The tavern provided a lot of things for the common folk. And it makes sense to have it be the same in Dungeons & Dragons. I remember this one campaign I ran some time ago. Two of the players, essentially, they wanted to trade out their characters. They didn't want their characters, essentially, adventuring anymore. They had their own reasons that they wanted to trade them out, and they just kind of like, they'd dip out together and they'd start a business together. Well, they opened a tavern, and the party frequently went back to that same tavern and essentially ate and drank there and spoke with their old two comrades about the adventures. It was kind of touching in a sense. Too bad the two new characters, didn't last that long. One ended up dying due to a full frontal dragon's breath. Yeah. The other one committed seppuku. If I'm saying that right. Essentially, he was playing as a samurai, and he committed suicide in the honorable way because he had been dishonored in combat. And, yeah. It was kind of a fun campaign. But yeah, perhaps you should think about how you use taverns and such in your campaign. Could they be run by former adventurers themselves who just kind of got tired of the adventuring lifestyle and they decided to settle down? Are they perhaps of people who are so aged and wise that they've been there forever? They know what goes on, they know all the rumors, and they know what's true and what's not. Or perhaps it's just a simple town wanting to start up. Anyways, that's it for this D20 Sundays. I'll catch you next time.